Welcome back for the second part in the series on sermon preparation using Logos Bible software. As I mentioned in the first part in the introduction, the sermon process is broken down into 5 days, and day 1 is dedicated to observation and meaning. Now, using Logos and the layouts built into this, I've really actually broken down day 1 into 2 parts. Day 1, part A, is really about observation, and part B of day 2 is looking at the meaning, really the Greek and Hebrew in that understanding. So to keep it simple for my own preparation, to keep my desktop as clutter-free as possible, I really do 2 layouts for day 1. And so in this video I want to show you what day 1A, observation, is all about. First, you should know the goal for day 1 is allow the passage to create questions and doubts. When I approach the passage and read it, I'm really trying to look at it with fresh eyes and say, what's not understandable? What makes no sense? Why did people act the way they did? Why did they say the things that they say? How can I even possibly understand this from an outside perspective? So putting yourself in the place of someone who really doesn't understand what's being done. And so that's a skill to kind of work on for day 1. The study portion of this is really broken into looking at multiple passages. I like to use at least 3. And I try to use different ones all the time, so I'm not getting used to reading it with a certain perspective or a certain writing style. It challenges me to think differently through the passage than I would otherwise if I'm used to a certain translation. And so that's really the study process. And again, the goal here is to come away with day 1A with a list of questions that I will answer ultimately through the rest of my days of study. So how do we do the layout? Well, let's begin here. Go to the command bar at the top of your Logos window, and we're going to open up our first Bible. We're going to use the New American Standard Bible, 95 edition. And we're going to open that up to our study passage for today. It will be Galatians chapter 1. Now Logos will find that, and then I just click and it'll open. Now for my second translation, I'm going to pick the TNIV. Very different approach to translation, very different style, and that's exactly what I want to have. And since we're in the New Testament, I'm also going to open up the Jewish New Testament, which is just another alternative translation that has a fairly different approach. So you can pick anything you want. Sometimes I'll pick a New King James, so I get a different manuscript background and kind of see where those are different. But for today, I'm just going to use these 3. Now, this is not how I want them to lay out, so I'm going to go to my layouts at the top, and I'm going to let Logos arrange these into 3 panels. And then in these 3 panels, I want these to move along together. So I'm going to click on the book icon, and I'm going to select each one to be part of link set A. So this means as I scroll through one translation and read, the others will follow along. So wherever I go, all these are going to stay together. Now the next step is that I want to be able to track my changes and follow along and keep notes. So there's a couple things I want to do. First, I want to go to Tools, and I want to open my favorites. This is a organizational tool built into Logos that allows me to create folders and also keep track of note files or links, collections of notes, all in one place. We'll go through a little bit of that later. The second thing I want to open, though, is highlighting. There's highlighting. It allows me to select different pen styles, create shortcut keys to highlight as I go. And then I also want to open up my information window. Now, by default, Logos opens it on the right. I'm going to actually move that over because I want more screen space for just the text. And then also notice in that information window, if you're not familiar, if I click on a keyword here, Logos will bring up the information about that word definitions, it'll pronounce it in Greek, those sort of things. This part of my study in day 1A is really not about Greek study, but I do like having the information window open in case I just really want to kind of explore briefly what a word is, but I'm not going to do any real intense study of it at this point. I just want to let the translation through multiple translators kind of speak to me and tell me where are the questions, where are the doubts, what is the focus of this passage, and get the overall flow of what's happening. All right, so now with those 3 panels open along with my Bibles, I also want to be able to take notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, I'm going to open a new note, and I'm going to drag this down by taking the tab, and I'm going to pull that just down to the very bottom here. And I'm going to name that note Galatians chapter 1. Because as I begin my study, I don't know what verses I'm going to look or how far I might make it in my study. A lot of times I go through a whole chapter in a week in presenting it through a expository narrative approach. So I'll just start with a note on that entire chapter. Now inside that note, I'll have individual notes for each part of my day. The first part again is knowing observations and making questions. So one thing I'll do is I'll just click on the first part, Galatians 1, and I'm just going to add a note to Galatians 1. I'm just going to title this section Questions. And in here, as I read through the passage, I scroll down, I'm just going to write all the questions. So why is this person speaking? Who are they speaking to? I don't understand. Why are they wearing the clothes they're wearing? Why are they going where they're going? Whatever questions come up as I read through. If I want, I can attach that specific question to a different verse, or sometimes I'll just say verse 4, and then I'll write my question there. I don't really worry about attaching this part of the note to a specific verse because I want it to be more all-encompassing about what's really happening over the whole process. So each question I write in there. Now, the thing you want to do and note is that I want this note to show up in my future days and my future layouts. So Logos has this great information, the favorites window that we talked about. In each section here I have Bible studies, word studies, topical studies. I even keep a backup of all my blogs that I write on More Than Cake. But today we're doing a Bible study, and inside there I've got an Old Testament and a New Testament. Go to my New Testament, there's my study of Galatians. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to drag this tile over to Galatians and just drop it in. And now notice when I open up the window of Galatians, I have a note file here on Galatians. So that is where it's going to start from. And this will then be available through each day of my study and through each layout through the favorites window. And that's it for your desktop layout on day 1 of using Logos Bible software for sermon preparation.